What is up, ineffable being? How are you doing today? I hope you're having an amazing, wonderful day. I want to tell you that you are important. You are special. You mean the world, and you are loved. Today's topic is heaven and hell. Yeah, I think we got to get into it. We got to discuss it. It is something very fundamental. So, heaven or hell? Well, how do you even begin to talk about heaven or hell? So, this video isn't to say if it's real or it doesn't exist, but the synopsis of my idea, my connotation, my belief around it is like my mentor Sadhguru says. How do you know you're not already living in heaven and making a disaster out of it? So, getting into my personal beliefs, thoughts, perceptions, heaven or hell, I take it a very analytical way. And that all starts with, it doesn't matter if I believe it or if I don't believe it. The simple fact is, it does exist. But now bear with me. The reason it exists is because there are people that believe it exists, as well as there are people that believe it does not exist. So it exists as much as it literally exists in the mind of people. And on the flip side, for everyone who does not believe in it, they also create that reality. So I know this is a very disturbed way to try to break something down that is so ancient. But we have to accept that you have your brain and you have your conscious, your subconscious, your unconscious. We're not going to get into what those are, but we also have to accept that there's a collective unconscious and subconscious. So how you can imagine this, imagine your mind. Over here we have what we call love. And over here we have compassion, fear, hatred, anxiety, sexual arousal. The mind is broken down in all these different ways. It's like a room. Imagine being a billionaire and having a house with 100 rooms. Well, that's very similar to what the mind is. The mind is just different portions, right? Sometimes we can just call them different emotions, ideas. So that is the mind. In your mind, you have hate, you have room for love, for compassion, for joy, for anger. Well, you know what? All your beliefs are also built in the mind. So if whatever you believe, that is your mind. But there's a collective mind as well. So I'm not here to say does hell exist or does it not exist? And what about heaven? The simple matter of the fact is that they both exist simultaneously. Neither exist. Why? As long as there's a living person, energy that believes in something, it does exist. So taking this route that I take to kind of conceptualize this idea of heaven and hell, I look, why do I need to know? What importance does having a belief system, does arguing against someone else's point, what does this bring me having and building a belief system of this? Do I want to know to grow success, to have more happiness? Is it because I can go into a bar and talk to you about it these are my belief systems and this is who I am and I believe this about this? Or do we want to propagate our ideas onto others? This is it, yes or yes. So I ask myself these questions because heaven or hell, well, I was raised very religious. My sister tells me whenever I was little, I would pass the whole day singing to God. I would sing to God 24/7. And I would have, some people would say imaginary conversations. But you know what? inside of me, I was literally conversing with God. In the sense that, in the story goes that I would sing to God and have conversations with God, but an external person looking at this, not knowing like what exactly is going on, they would like, oh, this little kid's talking to himself, right? So I share that to say that I grew up around, church and all these things, and along my journey, post my first awakening, post I realized that I have a mind and I can use it consciously. Um, I built my own perception of things, and there's a whole bunch out there. There's third eye, chakras, heaven or hell, spirits, demons, and so forth. And I'm not trying to say that, what's that idea that, not knowing is bliss. There's a certain word that we use it's just, out of reach right now. But ignorance is bliss. I'm not trying to persuade you to not believe something. But there's so much that you can believe in, right? There's so much information out there, especially in the spiritual world. There's people that channel, there's people that are guides, and there's people that, talk about chakras and spirituality, and each of these things can be broken down into like such a small thing. In essence, like, do you need to have a belief system and everything? I guess is what I look at it. And beyond that, if I'm going to do something and give it a belief system, which a belief system is BS. My BS, you don't have to believe my BS. But what I do invite you to is to build a BS on matters that can be looked at something important, or in that society gives him a high importance, like this such thing as heaven and hell. And the reason I invite you to do this is because then you can be authentic. You can decide based on your personal experiences and your life and what really resonates with you if I'm going to keep believing the things that I have been told, because in my experience, I do believe it, and there's life has presented to me reasons that I can emotionally, experientially believe this, or decide, what, no, I'm just not going to really believe, what has been indoctrinated into me. And so that's the route I take. Heaven or hell, you can sit and argue about it. There's so many different, there's so many, even just some gods have 8 arms, some gods are bearded, and some gods, are a cow and bulls, and there's just so much information out there. So do you need the absolute truth? Like, is that what you need? Do you need to know, like, the absolute truth? I know that in my journey, I was like, yeah, why do I care? Do I need to know the absolute truth? And where I am currently in my journey is like, heaven or hell, it can exist or it cannot exist. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about what's going to happen whenever this body isn't conscious anymore. You know what I'm worried about? What I care about whenever I think about heaven or hell? If I do, it's again what Sadhguru, my mentor, says. How do you know you're not living in heaven and making the hell out of it? So maybe we should take our attention off something that is so grand and vast, and we argue and we go to war and we fight and we love on these topics, and just accept it like it exists and it also does not exist. And having that foundation, what is going to be the outcome of building a belief system about heaven or hell, or pro-life or racism, and any topic really in your life? What is it going to bring you? Heaven or hell, I spend little time to no time thinking about it. My focus is, how can I make my present right now the best? How can I be the best person? How can I love? How can I communicate? How can I take charge of my physiology? And I'm not going to let these super big phenomenons and ideas like dictate my life. Like, oh, I'm powerless. I don't understand these super things that these people like understand. You know what? Like, hey, if you need to understand, if you need to know if heaven or hell is real, then by all means go and live that route. But I can tell you from experience that it's not going to change your lifestyle very much. It's not going to make you happier. It's not going to make your relationships. It's not going to bring you more money. It's not going to bring you more success if you have the seed like the absolute truth. So that's my take on it. Really just pushing you to build your own belief system and see what's going to come out of me building a belief system. Because I believe once looking at it very analytically, you're going to see like, what importance does it really actually even have on my life? Because if you want to build your happiness, if what you're worried about is your happiness, your internal happiness and your external happiness, and you decide, like Gary Vee says, well, I'm not to build the biggest building in town, the tallest building in town. There's a couple ways to do this. I can destroy other people's buildings, or I can simply make the biggest building in town. So as long as your happiness, whatever path you want, as long as you're not destroying other people's buildings, then by all means go and do what you wish to do. I hope you've enjoyed this message. I invite you to join me this month. We're still doing the monthly masterclass. It is free. It is over how to live through the heart. And I have already built we have a live mentorship program that is about a 6 weeks mentorship program where we dive deep into the physiology of the brain, into what is going on behind the scenes, inside. And we built tools, mechanistically built neural pathways to how to better your present state of being. I invite you to give it a like, subscribe, share this with your family and friends, and comment down below. What importance does having a definite answer as to what is heaven and hell, what is that going to bring you? Because I'd love to see your perspective and your take on what that is going to, how is that going to enhance, or how does that feel? How does that fuel you? How does that fill you inside with love or, discontent? I'd really love to know, because I've shared with you my take on it, and my perspective is this going to enhance my life? Is this going to better my life? And I'd love to hear your side of it. I hope to see you in the side of light. Goodbye.